we hope it's not the virus.
Okay, so well, we'll have a we can do this a couple of ways. Do you want to do a meditation first, or should we have a little chat first, then do a meditation to end off?
Meditation first.
I like doing meditation first. Okay.
That's up to you, all of you.
No, that's fine. We can do a meditation first. So just.
So we hope it's not the virus.
Just getting yourself comfortable. Put your phone on mute or silent. So you don't be disturbed by anyone phoning you or anything. Okay. It's going. All right. So I think we're good to go. You both ready?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to mute you. Okay. Right. So welcome everyone to your evening meditation. We're going to have a discussion session after this. So if you're out there on YouTube, you're welcome to stick around for that. We're going to do a meditation first based on Course in Miracles Workbook Lesson 310 and the preliminary section on what is the second coming. So just giving yourself the next 20 minutes, 25 minutes time out. Put your phone on mute or silent. It's going somewhere where you're not going to be disturbed for the next 25 minutes. Sitting comfortably in your favorite meditation posture, whatever that is. So maybe that's sitting in lotus or half lotus if you're an advanced meditator, or you can sit up in bed. Just make sure you keep your back straight. So prop your back against the wall or a pillow or something. Keep your back straight because you're raising energy up the spine. So it's very helpful if you keep your back straight. And afterwards, I'll talk a little bit more about breath work and why breath work can turbocharge your spiritual practice. So for now, just close your eyes, keep your back straight, cup your hands in your lap, put one hand on your heart, the other in your lap. Start off by taking a nice deep breath in through the nose. So you breathe in, just push the stomach out. Imagine you breathing air into the belly button. Feel the stomach inflating. Just clench the sphincter muscle. It's the muscle you use to contract the flow of urine. Squeeze the last drop out. And it helps to pump the energy up the spine. So feel that life energy rising up the spine into the heart center, to the upper chest, into the head. Take another sip of air at the top, so it's a maximal inhale breath. Pause there. Scan your mind and notice any thoughts or emotions going on, particularly anything that's contracted, that's limiting, restricting, resisting, negative in quality, and notice how that feels. So maybe a kind of a tightness in your jaw, spreads into your neck and shoulders, a tight stomach, knot in your stomach, a block in your chest, whatever it is, just notice. So awareness is the first step to letting go of negativity. The second step is just the choice to let it go. So I do not need these things. These thoughts and emotions don't serve me. So exhale out your mouth and just blow them out with the breath. Imagine that all this negativity is releasing out of your mouth like black smoke. You come to rest in the stillness, in the peace. Pull the lower stomach into the spine. And just pause there. Just enjoying the stillness. Now breathing in again. Going to play you a bit of music. And just repeat. So breathing into the lower stomach, to the middle chest, to the upper chest. Squeeze the sphincter muscle. Feel this life energy rising up the spine. Okay. Just a warm thread of energy coming all the way into the crown of your head. Just pause at the top of the inhale, smile, and then exhale. Just sigh it all out. Make a little sighing sound in the back of your throat. It's the Ujjayi sound in yoga. So you're fogging sunglasses, but you keep your mouth closed. Air flows out of the nostrils. Chest and the stomach suck back in. And this energy subsides back down from the crown of the head, flowing down into the heart center, into the lower stomach. Like a wave just subsiding back into the ocean. And then you pause there briefly. Just connect with the stillness in the gaps between breaths. And breathing in again. So stomach rises, chest rises, do a little clench of the sphincter muscle. Notice the life energy rising up the spine, to the heart center, into the crown of the head. Pause, smile at the top of the inhale. And then exhale. Process reverses. Air flows out of the nostrils. Make the sighing Ujjayi sound in the back of your throat. Feel this energy subsiding back down, flowing down the front channel of your body into your heart center and your stomach. Connect with the stillness again in the gap between breaths, and then repeat the cycle. So just watching your breath, putting all your attention on the breath as you breathe in, you breathe out, bringing your mind into complete present moment awareness. So as you continue to watch your breath, just keep your mind very still, calm, empty, open, but aware. And you listen to these words from this preliminary section. It's the last lesson of the series of 10 lessons. So we're going to move on to a new preliminary section tomorrow, but we'll do this one last time. And what is the second coming? So just let these words drop into your awareness, into the calm, empty, open, spacious awareness in your mind. You don't have to try and intellectually understand them. Just allow them in and let them give you an experience. So the words carry an energy. That energy can be translated into experience, which is ultimately what all words are pointing us to, a deeper inner state, an inner experience the words that really just point us to. So try and just allow this experience to happen as you listen to these words. Keep watching your breath. I'll remind you to do that from time to time. So what is the second coming? Christ's second coming, which is sure as God, is merely the correction of mistakes and the return of sanity. It is a part of the condition that restores the never lost and reestablishes what is forever and forever true. It is the invitation to God's word, to love's word, to take illusion's place, the willingness to let forgiveness rest upon all things, without exception and without reserve. Just pause, watch your breath, keeping your mind nice and calm and still, but aware. In these terms, Christ's second coming, God, they're just pointers, as I said, to an inner experience. Christ is your higher self, self that only knows love. God is the idea of perfect love, perfect oneness. So that's why I'm translating for you. I'm using other words besides the traditional Christian terminology, because how you understand those words, if you've had any experience of traditional Christian teaching, is probably not the way that Course in Miracles, Jesus, who's the teacher, means the words. So bearing that in mind, just keep watching your breath, staying nice and still, calm, empty, open, but aware. And just let these words sink into your mind and give you an experience, a deeper connection to Source, Father, love, God, His eternal presence in you. It is the source of life, source of love, the source of all that is real. And is the all-inclusive nature of Christ's second coming that permits it to embrace the world and hold you safe within its gentle advent, which encompasses all living things with you. There is no end to the release the second coming brings. As God's creation, love's extension must be limitless. Forgiveness lights the second coming's way because it shines on everything as one. And thus is oneness recognized at last. Pause, watch the breath. So this idea of perfect oneness is God, the highest conception, an absolute reality of one life, one consciousness, one mind. Second coming is just the recognition of that oneness at last. And it ends the lessons that the Holy Spirit teaches, making way for the last judgment in which learning ends in one last summary that will extend beyond itself and reach up to God, this eternal oneness, love. Second coming is the time in which all minds are given to the hands of Christ to be returned to spirit in the name of true creation and the will of God, the will of this eternal loving presence. second coming is the one event in time which time itself cannot affect. For everyone who ever came to die, or yet will come, or who is present now, is equally released from what he made. And this equality is Christ restored, your higher self restored to your awareness as one identity, in which apparently separate sons of God acknowledge that they all are one. And God the Father, the source of love, smiles upon his Son, love's extension. It's one creation and its only joy. Pray that the second coming will be soon, but do not rest with that. It needs your eyes and ears and hands and feet. It needs your voice. And most of all, it needs your willingness. Let us rejoice that we can do God's will and join together in its holy light. Behold, the Son of God is one in us, and we can reach our Father's love through him. And so just pause, watch the breath. Just have a sense of this loving presence encompassing you. And breathe that in as you inhale. Keep breathing in this fearless, loving presence into your heart center, on the stomach, so rising up. First into the stomach, then the heart center. Put your hand on your heart if you've taken it down. Feel that warmth, that comfort. Breathe in again. Third phase of the breath into the upper chest. Final sip of air into the head. You feel this warm, loving presence rising up from the lower stomach and spine, through your heart center, into your head. So it's encompassing your entire upper body, extending into your mind. And say, today's lesson 310, in fearlessness and love I spend today. And then just rest in that. If you notice any little scraps of fear lurking there, any bits of anxiety, minor irritations, grievances, these are all part of this thought system of fear that sabotages love. So just notice the thoughts, notice the feelings, notice how you feel in the body. Maybe there's a knot in your stomach, just a tightness, a contraction, a tension, fear, and all this contraction, restriction kind of go hand in hand. Fear and dis-ease go together. So as you become aware of that dis-ease, just let it go with the help of your breath. Say, in fearlessness and love, I dwell right here and now. And blow out all of this negativity like a black smoke out of your mouth. It's leaving your body, leaving your mind, your energy system. Going, gone. Pull the lower stomach into the spine so you empty yourself completely of air and of this negativity. Just rest here for a few moments. Get a taste of this fearless, loving presence. Just wants you to be aware of it. wants you to allow it to come into your mind and heal your mind completely. So breathing in again. Notice how the stomach rises, the chest rises. Clench the sphincter muscle, feel this energy rising up. Pause. Say, this day, my Father, would I spend with you, as you have chosen all my days should be. And what I will experience is not of time at all. The joy that comes to me is not of days nor hours. It comes from heaven to your Son, your extension. This day will be your sweet reminder to remember you, your gracious calling to your Holy Son, your extension, the sign your grace has come to me, and that it is your will I be set free today. So exhale. And really just let it all go. This is a total letting go process of all thoughts, all emotions, all resistance to this fearless, loving presence. Just let yourself go into the peace, into the stillness for a few moments. Notice that in the gap between breaths. Smile. Because we spend this day together, you and I. This is Jesus speaking to you. The Christ presence, if you prefer, thinking of it that way. And all the world joins with us in our song of thankfulness and joy to Him who gave salvation to us and who set us free. We are restored to peace and holiness. There is no room in us for fear today, for we have welcomed love into our hearts. So breathing in, and just welcome this loving presence into your heart. Keep your hand on your heart. Imagine you breathing in this essence of love. If you visualize well, you can imagine light, beautiful golden or white light flowing in as well. This loving presence flowing into your stomach, your heart center, rising up from the lower stomach, up the spine into your middle back, your chest. Squeeze the sphincter muscle to help that just pump the energy up the spine. And you just let this loving presence rise all the way up to the crown of the head. Smile. So you're enfolded in this loving presence. Nowhere else to go, nothing else to do. Just breathe, relax, and be still for a couple of minutes. Sink into the peace, the holiness that comes with love. Step back, watch your breath. Let the external silence stop the music. Just let that silence activate this deep inner stillness. Just sink a bit deeper with each breath into this total calm, total peace, total love. Let it enfold you. Breathe, let go. Surrender to this loving presence we call God for the next 2 minutes of silence. And so just gently bring your awareness back from this deep state into the body, the world. On the count of 3, you're going to open your eyes. So 1, breathing in. And just notice the stomach rise, chest rise, subtle flow of air into the nostrils. Feel the life energy rising up your spine, like a warm thread flowing all the way into the crown of your head. Another sip of air at the top. Pause. Smile. This loving presence is still there with you. It hasn't gone anywhere. And exhale. You exhale, just sigh it all out. Imagine it's like a wave cresting, just breaking back into the ocean. It's what the Ujjayi sighing sound sounds like. And this life energy just subsides back down the front channel of your body, coming to rest in your stomach, in your heart center. Keep your hand there. Just feel this nice, warm, comforting presence. So just notice all your body senses, what you're feeling and touching, the warmth of this energy, your hand on your chest, feet touching the ground, the weight of your body, pressing down to the chair. Notice any taste in your mouth, smell in your nose as you breathe in again. Just tune into these very subtle sensations. Just brings your mind back into the present moment. So there's no room for a thinking monkey mind when all your awareness is on simplicity of what's happening now. Notice the sounds in your environment, but notice all these things without judgment. So there's no attempt to name them, to label them, to judge them in any way. You just allow them to be. To arise and subside and back into the ground of being. This peaceful presence of love. It's way beyond fear. So 3, gently open your eyes. Just look around. Take 30 seconds to just scan the room. Wherever you happen to be, looking at random objects for a second or 2, and then just move on. Look up, look down, around you, behind you. And notice that your perception is really unmoved by anything you see. So your deeper inner state is still there. You're very rooted in being. That love and that peace are still there, even though all of your senses are now engaged. So this starts to train your mind to pay more attention to the background of your mind, your true awareness, rather than the foreground, which is your sense perceptions and all the meanings and interpretations that we give those. So stay connected to this. Just watch your breath for the rest of the evening. You're going to stay in the session. I'll just remind you every so often, just keep watching your breath. And while the mind's engaged and you're thinking about things, it just keeps you anchored into this deeper presence. And you can also listen to the shorter recording that I sent you if you in the Art of Letting Go Club. I sent you a shorter breath break this afternoon, which is ideal to top you up every hour. You get feel like you're getting upset by anything, use it in immediate response to that. So for those on the WhatsApp group, say goodnight now. Wish you a very peaceful and flowing evening ahead. And I hope to connect with you tomorrow during one of the meditations at 12:30 UK time, 1:30 SA time, and then again at 5 p.m. UK, 6 p.m. SA time in the Zoom room. Join me then. Namaste. For those who on YouTube and in the Zoom room, well, let's continue straight on with a discussion session. So just going to unmute you. There we go. So hope you enjoyed that.
Thank you, Jono.
Pleasure. So anything arising, any questions, anything you want to chat about particularly?
Not really. Other than the fact, what would consciousness be termed as in the course? I just can't remember it. What is consciousness or being
Well,
aware?
he uses that term quite specifically. He says consciousness is the first level of the split. So the way the course uses consciousness is he says this is the domain of the ego. The ego mind is the first split away from God, the first split away from this perfect oneness, was this other consciousness that arose. It said, well, what if I could be separate? What if I could have my own identity? And a lot of other paths and teachers use consciousness synonymously with love. They go, consciousness is the one mind, the loving mind of God. But the Course uses it very specifically, these terms, to differentiate between the consciousness that made up the whole illusion and the one mind of God that is, was, and always will be.
And what does he call that?
Well, oneness, spirit, God.
Not awareness. Wouldn't be awareness.
No, he doesn't use. I mean, he obviously uses the words awareness in the Course quite a lot. He doesn't say awareness with a capital A.
Oh, okay. I couldn't remember what it said in the Course of what the ultimate word would be for awareness,
Well, God, I guess he uses God a lot. God is that ultimate. It's the source of your mind. It's the awareness that cannot be undone. There's nothing else. You can't deconstruct it. You can't go beyond that. The idea of consciousness is that you can transcend consciousness. You can go beyond, as the Course uses anyway, beyond just this consciousness of almost like, okay, I'm conscious that I have some kind of existence. But usually that's the consciousness of a separate existence. Okay, I'm conscious I have a body. I'm conscious that I have a world. And what Jesus is saying, which is challenges most other spiritual teachings and paths, is that no, actually we're just unconscious. This is totally unconscious. The moment we split our minds, that idea and everything that came from it is unconscious. We are asleep and dreaming in a world of dreams and illusions. When actually there's this perfect one mind, this perfect awareness waiting for us. So,
Thank you.
but some teachers may say consciousness, and they may be talking about this higher awareness, this awareness of perfect oneness. So that's why the definitions of terms can, well, I mean, actually that's the whole problem, isn't it? You're trying to explain in language, which is dualistic by nature, what really is beyond language. You can't really put a word, a term to it. Say, and in fact, the words don't even matter because it's the experience of it ultimately. It's like, so can you go into this deeper experience And when you experience God, this perfect oneness, I think you know, because there's a quality there that is just totally peaceful, totally, there's nothing else.
Yeah.
I think we've all had that. And then, we come back into the ego's consciousness is always got separation at its heart. So it's like, so I'm aware of myself as something separate from what I'm perceiving from other people and the world outside of me. That consciousness is not what Jesus is talking about when he's saying, the God, because actually all that dissolves once you go to the highest, the most innermost self, the highest place, beyond which you cannot go. There's nowhere else to go once you're there.
Thank you.
Sure. There's actually a passage in the course we can read, but let's see how we go, because we wanted to end quite early tonight. So, anything else arising for you? Any issues, difficulties, problems?
I just want to know, does Jesus ever mention Satan or the devil? Because he does in the Bible.
Yeah, I remember the Bible is translation. So Jesus spoke in Aramaic, which is the language of the time.
Yeah.
And then it was translated from Aramaic into Greek, I think, first. Greek and then Latin. And so, and then finally English. So in all those translations, the writers, coined the term. I think in the translation, what he used is mammon. He used this word mammon, whatever that was in Aramaic, to denote it. Mammon. I don't think he used the word Satan. That's an English word. But it's the same thing. It's the idea of this false consciousness, the ego, as he calls it in the course, the ego.
Yeah.
The idea that there's a separate self, a separate will.
Yeah, but if I remember in the Bible, it's talking about Satan or whatever as something out there, separate from us, nothing to do with us. It just brings us evil. It's not part of us like the ego.
Yeah, well, so that's another ego defense. It's like, well, if the devil's outside of you, and this fearful concept of a devil outside of you that can apparently hurt you and work all this evil in your life is true, and the ego wants you to believe that, then there's no hope. You kind of like you separate it, and you can't actually transform it. But so remember, the ego is always trying to get you to look outside, not within, because if you really do look within and you go, well, the evil's in me, this whole ego thought system is in my mind, and it only has power because I give it power, because I believe it, and I think these thoughts, and then I feel these emotions. In the same way, it also projects the idea of God outside of ourselves, like there's some kind of external God.
Yeah, you're right.
Because that keeps you separate from your source. So,
yeah.
Whereas the course is always saying, look, go within, and you have to look at the ego within your own mind.
Yeah.
To do it, because that's the only way.
I think people, religious people, I think they'd be horrified to hear us saying that that we are part of God. I think they'd be horrified.
Well, I mean, it's been a constant theme in every major religion that you are one with God. Jesus said, "I am one with you. I am one with the Father, and you are one with me, and we all one." He said it. It's in their Bible. If you really want to, if you really want to go and look, but
I better go and read it.
If you traditionally orient, then you probably won't accept that, because you've been taught that God is somewhere outside of you.
That's right.
And that
so how can they?
You can only find God through the church, through a priest, through rituals, through whatever. And God is some kind of external force that you've got to please. So,
yeah.
Which of course is a great construct for the ego, because it just keeps that power somehow separate from you. And then if, say the church or the religion, whichever one it is, then goes, okay, well, we now the intermediaries of God on earth, and so we have God's power here, and you need to listen to us because we have the power of God behind us. Then it's a great way to control people, isn't it?
Well, it did. It was, yeah.
It did, yeah. For centuries, thousands of years, it worked. People were like, oh, these guys have got the direct line to God, and we've got to listen to them. And of course, most of what they taught had nothing to do with God and love at all.
Yeah.
It was corruption. There was a business model going on. It was a racket, isn't it? So that's the biggest threat to any traditional religion, is to say God is within you.
Yeah.
But that's been a constant theme in all these. If you really go to the heart of the religion, where it started, it was a mystic awareness. Someone said, I am one with God, like Jesus. That it's in you. This awareness is in you. It's not outside of you. In fact, in the Bible, the first name of God in the Old Testament was I am that I am. I am that I am. That was the name of God. So there's an awareness there that, well, it's I am that I am. That's who I really am. So it must be, if I am that, it must be within me. It can't be outside of me if I am that. But,
that's the same for Leo. I am that I am.
Yeah.
It's actually the astrological saying for ego, for Leo.
Yeah.
I am that I am.
So, it's a very old idea that God is within you, that God dwells within you. But the ego is doing its best all the time to not let us see that. Because when you see that presence is you, it's the very essence of you, and there is no other, then the ego's game is over. It's finished, because it's like that's all there is. And I'm willing to accept that atonement, that at-one-ment back to my source, and then I'm free. And then the ego has no hold anymore. But as long as I believe I'm somehow separate from my source, then the ego's in business. That is the whole delusion, isn't it? I'm separate from my source.
That's why the church burnt people and put them to death and all that. The olden days, anyway.
Yeah, well, it's pretty horrific what's happened in the name of of God. But it's not God at all. It's not the authentic God. It's the God of the ego, the cruel, punitive God of guilt and fear, sin, that's seemingly outside of you and now has the power to attack you and hurt you. God of love would never do that.
No. That's a very new concept, being a God of love. It's always God judging you, always. So
it's not new. I mean, Jesus said it 2,000 years ago. And before that, the Vedic teachers in India, it's been around. God is love.
Yeah, but church did it like that.
To really accept it is the revolution. If you can really accept, I am that loving presence. I am God. As you say, most people go, well, that's blasphemous. How can you say I am God? Or you think because they've got this false idea of God as some otherworldly being sitting there, and it's blasphemy to try and challenge that. But that's not what God is taught. God is the very essence of your mind, which simply wants to become you and express and be you and express through you. And so God now experiences himself, itself, in and through you, through your experience.
Yeah, because I went to a service recently with a Catholic friend of mine. Everything's done parrot fashion. And I thought, well, what the hell are they in church for? Just to appease God, perhaps, being good little Christians. And I don't know.
Well, I think there's a lot of there's a lot of guilt, there's a lot of fear, and so it's like, if I don't go to church, then maybe I'm going to go to hell. Because isn't that a great teaching of the church to make sure they keep their numbers up? If you don't go to church, you don't do what you say you're going to do, you're going to go to hell. So
Yeah.
I think that affects some people. They kind of, if they still believe that. And then there's a social aspect. They want to go to church because, you know, they meet there. It's kind of an outing and they connect with people and it kind of glues the community together. But I don't think for most people it's like I want to go and have a deep mystic connection with God in church. Probably most of the time that doesn't happen.
No.
But I was listening to
reciting things out of your book. You are reciting things for the, what do they call it? Communion, whatever. It's mainly
so it's a ritual. I mean, what rituals do is they can take people into if you repeat them over and over, into an altered state. That's why you have them.
Meditative state, yeah. Very calm.
So that's the idea. Like, you know, the meditation, for instance, we do, you know, it's a very similar aspect all the time because it's like breathing. And then because if you keep repeating it, then you kind of get into this pattern. But I think a lot of the time in church, it just becomes words, you know.
Yeah.
Like, does it actually take people into a deeper experience? Well, maybe some people, you know, we can't judge. Maybe some people it does. It does take them into that kind of holy state. I was listening to what's his name, Rupert Sheldrake. Have you heard of him, Debbie? You probably heard of him.
Yeah.
He's a sort of alternative scientist. He, you know, has talked about morphic fields and basically that, you know, everything is a result of consciousness. That's really what, you know, the more enlightened science is coming to see, that there are no fixed material laws. It's not this mechanistic universe. It's a result of consciousness, and these morphic fields are, you know, the extension of mind, of consciousness. And so he talks about going to these cathedrals in the UK, which have been up for hundreds, sometimes thousands of years, and people have come to them in this and they've gone into altered states in the cathedrals through the music and the rituals and so on that they do. And I have to say, I mean, I've been in a few of these. You definitely can feel there is a presence in those cathedrals. It's not a normal building, an office building or something. It's a completely different energy, and that's a result of the state of mind that thousands and thousands of people have been in while they're in those buildings. And it's almost like that whole building now absorbs that frequency, and you can go in there, and in a state like that, in a space like that. It can help you to go into, you know, a higher state, a holy state, as the Course would call it. Especially if they then have a ceremony and they do the music, and you know, it's you can just go and forget the rituals and whatever the dogma is. If you just go and you know, you immerse yourself in that experience, that could be a very meditative, spiritual experience. Which is how he
Peter's in Rome. It was like being in I don't know, like in a town. People were walking around here and there and discussing this and that while the service is going on. I don't know. I didn't feel anything.
In the Vatican you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think too often it does get the essence of the religion, which started usually with an enlightened being like Jesus, started Christianity. It gets diluted over the years, and often it just doesn't carry through, and it becomes more about the material, you know, the big church and the, you know, all the ornaments and the adornments of wealth. But still, even in those buildings, you can experience the essence of God if you're open to it, because God is everywhere. And if people have gone into these reverential kind of worship states when they're there, then you can. It's like a morphic field of energy that's going to take you in there, isn't it? Now there are places on earth which have that sort of resonance, and then people go, "Oh, that's a holy place." Well, it's just got an energy that helps to activate that kind of deeper presence in you.
Oh, those are ley lines. They call them ley lines.
Yeah, I mean, there's you know, there's
because they build
explanation.
them. Because they build them on those. The ancient people used to build them on those ley lines, like
Yeah.
and at the cross of the ley line, they would put the
Yeah.
altar. It was very
Yeah.
very heightened energy.
Yeah.
That's why you get the St. Mary's and the St. Michael's churches. They run
Mm.
along those ley lines in England.
Mm.
Well, I felt when I was in that, for instance, the Vatican I felt I was a tourist and I felt like I was intruding. You know, walking in and out and looking at everything, as you say.
Well, I think it
how
becomes a
they,
tourist attraction. You know, the whole
yeah. So how
the
do they,
energy is wrong. It's a tourist attraction, and that's not particularly spiritual.
yeah.
You know, the idea of it is that you go in and you go into an altered state, and you can connect with, you know, this most innermost presence we call God in that. But a lot of the time that just is missing.
Right.
But it's always possible, you know. Remember, it's up to you. If you really connected, you would go into that space, and even though there's tourists and, you know, whatever, you can connect, because God is everywhere.
Perhaps
So,
if you go in there every day like a nun would, you get something more out of it. But as you know, I just think they should limit tourists to when they can go in or out. You know.
oh well, I think that's happening
doesn't
now
seem
with
to
COVID.
matter.
I'm sure it's happening. So that's happening, I'm sure, already.
No, they'd have it any old time, right during a service, whatever.
Well, I'm sure with COVID they probably changed things, but anyway, so it's up to, you know, each person will interpret that service as they are. So one person might just be like snapping and going, "Oh, isn't that cool, darling? I'm looking at the pictures on the walls and whatever." And another person, because it's not really about that. Another person might go, "No, it's about, you know, going within and really connecting." And so the same thing's happening, but they have a different.
I just get the impression that all these, they are beautifully, architectural wise, they're beautiful. What were they trying to be? Grandiose, so that it would really grab people's attention instead of going within. That's the impression I get.
Yeah, I think there was a grandiosity there. The church wanted to be like, well, we, you know, rich and powerful, and so we got to build these enormous cathedrals. To obviously, it also housed a lot of people, so there's a practical element. It's okay if you have an enormous cathedral, you can have 1,000 people in your service rather than just a few hundred. So it's a numbers thing as well. But I think part of it was like, well, you know, if we're going to make a cathedral to God is this, you know, magnificent, all-powerful being. We've got to make this a very impressive structure, which Jesus refers to at some point. Of course, he says this is another defense. You know, these structures that you build, material structures, this is just actually another defense against the truth, because God is within, the altar is within. You don't need to build anything material. You can go into God wherever you are. You can be sitting in a you know, in an empty field, in a bare room, and you can find God there, because it's got nothing to do with
exactly. I mean, when the guy I used to dance with in the Arbor Village Choir, he was a Catholic, and I went to his funeral in the Malvern Catholic Church, and I couldn't even hear what they were saying. Some of them did in certain parts of the church, so we used just to follow when they were standing or sitting or whatever. We couldn't hear a word where we were, not a word. So.
Anyway. The thing with authentic spirituality, if you're really on a spiritual path, it challenges religions massively, because you don't need them. You don't need a church. You don't need a priest. You don't need someone to read to you, interpret for you. You go within and you connect with God directly in your own mind. So, you know, you don't need any of those structures. And so that, that's why they've always felt threatened by a truly enlightened master like Jesus. He threatened the whole structure.
Yep. No, I'm sure.
It's one of the reasons they crucified him. It's like, this is threatening the Jewish religion. It's threatening the Roman Empire. All these worldly power structures are threatened. The ego's power is hugely threatened by this simple idea that you can go within and you can find God there, and transcend all the nonsense the ego's created. It's very simple, but well, as you know, it's not that easy to do. The idea of just connect with God directly.
We noticed.
No, but your mind is cunning. The ego is cunning. That's why you were reading earlier about, they're saying the ego is the devil, is cunning and has all these schemes and it's the ego. The ego is cunning. It's got all these ideas and thoughts and beliefs, and it wants you to continue believing those, because that's its existence.
And then on the other hand, you get our other brethren in this country that have just broken into our church for about the third time. And apparently the church in Methodist Church in Kensington, there's no kind of, what is the word? They just couldn't care less, It's just something there to steal out of. It's nothing.
Well, I suppose if you're starving and your children haven't eaten for a couple of months, it must be quite hard not to steal.
Out of the church, okay.
Out anywhere, you lose all sense when you're hungry.
Everything is gone again.
What's gone?
The sound system, everything in the church has been stolen. Everything, and it's not.
They need to not leave it there. They need to remove it.
That's what I was thinking. But how can you take a sound system home with you every night? I don't know. I don't know what
lock it up in a safe. But
it had heavy doors. It was locked.
Remember, it's levels of consciousness. If someone is at a pretty low level, they're in a survival mode, then the idea of God really doesn't mean very much to them.
No, I don't think so.
I need to eat. And
when you're starving to death, nothing helps. Nothing counts. Really.
Yeah, maybe they're not. They're just in the they're in that consciousness of like, well, this is my business. I make money by stealing. So they that idea of a holy place isn't really going to have any meaning for them.
Yeah.
They would need to raise their level and actually start having a deeper appreciation, some kind of connection with source, and then they might go, actually, this is holy and this is wrong. I know this is wrong because something in me, not because there's a law in society that says it's wrong. There's something in me that knows that it's wrong.
Well, the Nazis did it in Nazi Germany. They took all the stuff out of the synagogues. The Russians did it to the Catholic churches when the communists took.
Yeah, and it's happening in China now, big time.
Of course it is. So it's not like it's a black thing. It's a human thing.
No, there it's just systematic. Here it's just, they're starving but when you systematically try to take down religious/spiritual.
This has been going on since before lockdown. This is about the third time.
But really what you're trying to do is you try to take society down to a materialist level, right?
Yeah,
the scientific materialist paradigm is the one that's kind of dominant in the world at the moment. The one that says, okay, if we understand science and we understand how this world works, we can create technology.
Yeah.
We can do stuff that's quite clever to control our environment, to make our environment more suitable for us, to control others. And the idea of some kind of force that is outside of that transcends that, is very threatening to a scientific materialist, which is why Rupert Sheldrake says a lot of these scientists are totally biased. They say they're objective, but they're not, because they're perceiving it through their own lens. There is no objectivity.
They're also paid, Don't forget, they're also paid in the universities. that they need to toe the line, otherwise they don't get their tenure.
They don't get the grants and so on. So there's a whole business model behind it
and they all toe the line because they don't get their tenure.
Well, they don't all toe the line. There are people like Rupert Sheldrake who doesn't toe the line.
He's no longer in a university. He's no longer with the university.
No, so sometimes you have to be willing to break free of the structures, because if you're part of a system or a structure, then by definition there's a dogma, there's a power structure in place, and anyone who's truly original is not going to be bound by that. You can't be bound by that. If you're gonna have original thought, Jesus wasn't part of the whole structure, was he?
But as far as people starving goes, you'll find that there is so much corruption in the government who should be looking after their own people. They're embezzling instead. I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah, but there's nothing new. This has been going on forever. It really is nothing new.
Every government in the world steals. You just don't know.
Power structures have been in place in human society forever, and whoever's in power takes advantage.
And steals. Most of them do.
Lord Acton, a famous British politician, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Mm.
Do they have their churches broken into over there?
Yes. Yes, they do, Hazel. The black people are not the monsters of the earth. They are human beings, just like other human beings, and they behave like just other human beings do. They're no different.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because I've been watching a series on it's called Outlander on Netflix, and it's about this woman goes back in time through these stones. Like there's a power center that's stones in Scotland, and she touches the stones. She gets transported 300 years back in time to the 17th century, 1700 and 1740 something. And so she's in this traditional society. It was the Highlander clans. It was a tribal society. They all at war with themselves and the English, so all these societies have been through this. There's a tribal kind of stage, and then you can evolve beyond that. And that's what's happening in the world. You've got all these different levels of consciousness. I'm just going to share my screen with you, and I'm going to show you.
I learned something interesting that I talked about the other day. That after the Battle of Culloden, where I've been to, where the English massacred the Scottish, they took prisoners of war and sold them into slavery.
Well, there was still slavery in those days, wasn't there? So
yeah, but
so it was quite a primitive, way of life, and it took hundreds of years to evolve out of that. And so they're people at different levels in different societies, and it takes time to go up this spiral. Can you see my screen?
That's how I've never understood. Are people at different levels of evolutionary consciousness? But anyway,
there's still slavery in the world. It's one of the biggest businesses on the whole planet. Slavery in the world now.
Yeah, it's just not officially allowed, but it's.
No, but I'm talking about the evolution of consciousness.
Yeah.
Why are there so many different levels that people are at in this world?
Well, that's the separation of the ego, isn't it? It's split consciousness into all these different levels, and there's all these different ideas at each level, and that's the domain of consciousness that we talked about earlier. Consciousness has separation at its basis. What underpins the idea of consciousness is that there is something separate from oneness. In oneness, there are no levels. There can be no levels in oneness. Oneness is oneness. So you know, while we're here, we sort of have to evolve up this apparent spiral. Can you see my screen, by the way?
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. So this is the spiral dynamics idea. So we have survival at the base. That's beige. So that's a very primitive way of existing. You see, say, guys on the street who just like, where's my next meal coming from? That's their entire world. Right? They're in a survival consciousness. How can I get my next meal? How can I survive for the next 24 hours? And then, you know, if you go a little bit higher, there's like the need for security. People go, okay, I want more security. So what happened historically is they got into groups and they formed these tribes or clans because there was more security in numbers. You know, your tribe would protect you against the other tribe that wanted to come and steal your food or whatever. So, but it's still very fear-based.
That consciousness tells you it's all right to steal because you're doing for the good of your own tribe. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, tribes by definition then create separation. So, you know, as long as I'm doing it for my tribe, then whatever I do to your tribe, that's okay, because you're not, you know, my tribe is important and your tribe is the enemy.
That's right.
And you know, so it's a tribal way of thinking.
That's how the Nazis did it.
Yeah, very, very tribal. You know, we're the uber super people, and the Jews and everyone else are some other tribe, and so they're less than human, and so then therefore we can annihilate them, and it's fine. So you're not seeing that actually everyone has life. No one is any better than anyone else. It's the delusion if you think you are. Everyone has the essence of life, which is given by this creative presence or force called God. And you know, if you really understand that, then you're at the top of the spiral, as you can see. So here, there's that's a tribal one, purple.
Why did this Nazi outlook arrive? Because when you look at the history of Germany, there's all these people who have come from there. They're what do you call them? Like we are, kind of. A lot of them originated in Germany. Yet now you get this other levels, dead opposites, you know.
Well, because the ego wants you to stay at these bottom levels. It doesn't want you to realize that only oneness is true and only love is true. It wants to create a separate identity at all costs. And so, you know, that separate identity is often related to a tribe. You know, now I've got a separate identity because I'm part of the tribe. I'm part of the nation. I've got a separate individual identity, and all it's trying to do is separate all the time. So, you know, any separation is a result of the ego, and its obsession with having some kind of separate identity, however that looks,
and being better than the next one.
Yeah. So I, which I'm identified with, you know, my tribe, we're better than the other tribe. And so therefore, you know, it's quite justified to go to war against them, to steal from them, to kill them because they're less than us, because our tribe is everything. So of course,
but as far as the Jews go, it's not like they were even fighting. They just persecuted them. They had nothing to defend themselves with. I don't know.
No, but it was part of the, you know, you need an enemy. If you're in the ego and you're in these low levels, you need an enemy. And Hitler was very good at galvanizing the German people to say, right, you know, we need an enemy. And we've got this cause, and it's the German people and the Aryan race, and these people are dangerous because they have lower bloodlines. And you know, I mean, you make up a story, and then you get people buying into it en masse, and you get power. You know, this third level energy, the red power. It's a power god. So Hitler was a power god. He was like, I'll be God. I'll set myself up as this, you know, god of this people. And now I've got such delusions of grandeur. I want to go and conquer the whole world.
But you know, if you there's a documentary out that says that was all orchestrated by the Americans, the whole lot.
Well, maybe not, but Hitler certainly played his role in it. You know, he was quite willing to play that.
He was chosen and they didn't kill 6 million anybody's, not at all.
he was quite willing to play that part. So you know, that kind of power energy is almost at the top of the tree for the ego. It's like, oh, I'll be God. And we see it here, you know, the powers that be here, Julius Malema, etc., and various other people in government who shall remain nameless. It's a power, you know, it's all about power, isn't it? It's power and control.
You could mention Merkel, you could mention a whole lot of other people.
Yeah, you know, they put themselves in this power position, and now they're like gods because they've got all this power.
Look what that New Zealand woman's doing now. She's making concentration camps for people who get COVID. I mean, seriously. Seriously.
So,
a concentration camp.
So, like when you understand the spiral dynamics, you start to see the world clearly. You go, okay, you just understand that people are at these different levels, and these levels are interacting all the time. And then the absolute order is blue. So to try and civilize these power gods, you know, there's the idea of an absolute order, which was in the Middle Ages, the church was a sort of absolute order of like, okay, you know, we're in charge because we've got the hotline to God, and so we need to listen to it. And it did kind of civilize, you know. It was before that, Europe was barbaric. You had all these barbarians, and they were raiding and killing each other, and so that absolute order kind of brought some kind of stability to society. But then at a point it becomes gridlocked, and it becomes very stifling and oppressive. And so 500 years ago, that all got challenged, and then they started this whole scientific materialist movement, right? So, and that's the success or the orange level. So it's like, okay, hang on, we're not just bound by what the church says. The church says, you know, all these things about the world, you know, that the earth is the center of the universe and stuff, and actually that's not true. And so you had these scientists who started questioning the dogma and saying, you know, that's not how it is actually, because we can use our minds and we can work this out, and we can use tools like maths and science, and we can prove that the earth is not flat, and we can prove that the earth is not the center of the solar system, that the sun is the center of the solar system. And so there was this whole revolution of like coming out of that really very, very controlled absolute order into, hang on, we can think for ourselves. And now you know, we can create things, we can invent things, we can use our minds to you know, create technology that helps us improve our standard of living. And so the church's power waned, and the new sort of dominant power in the world is the scientific, as Rupert Sheldrake says, the scientists are the new priests. And in fact, the Illuminati, they called themselves the Illuminati because they were this new, like, we're more enlightened than the church, you know, this whole scientific materialist paradigm. They set about creating a new priesthood of scientists who would be like, right, these are the new go-to guys for truth. They're going to tell us the truth about the world, how the world works, and the universe. And that's permeated all levels of our society, isn't it? Science and technology are pretty dominant. And so what they're trying to do now, if you look at that structure, is they're trying to go, right, we've gone to scientific materialist paradigm, but we want to lock it down here, literally lock down consciousness into an absolute order, new world order, you know, controlled by science, and anything spiritual, anything that points to these higher levels must be shut down, must be stopped, because we don't want people growing up here. We want to lock them in at this absolute order and control of a scientific materialist paradigm, that there's nothing else besides this material world and the laws of this world, which is what's going on now. So the ego is trying to stop the evolution of consciousness, of you know, people rising up to ultimately this idea of oneness, and the Holy Spirit is saying, no, you need to evolve beyond this. So the next evolution up from this orange level is the idea of integral or community, right? That we can actually find a sense of connection, that it starts to become important to the community is more important than the individual. Whereas at success, it's all about individual success, isn't it? It's like, as long as I'm okay, then I'm successful. That's the kind of Western materialist paradigm. This community says, no, actually, success is about everyone being successful. There's more of a community sense of community and benefiting everyone, the whole, rather than just an individual. And then you move up to synergy, which is yellow. That starts to become integral. So now you start to see that actually my inner state, my individual state is very much connected to the whole. I'm not separate from the whole, and my thoughts have an impact on the whole. So my individual consciousness has an effect on the collective culture of society, and I can influence that. If I'm strong enough in my own beliefs, I can influence the collective consciousness or culture. And then at holistic, you get into life support. So that's the idea that we're all one. The idea of a Gaia, there's one life, there's one mind, and we need to support that life. We need to be connected to that and nurturing that, rather than damaging it and harming it, because there's only one life. And if we destroy life, then we're destroying ourselves, because we're part of that.
Tell me, what actually turned Hitler to what he was? Because initially he was artist, and normally they're very kind of easygoing, and
he was what?
He was an artist to begin with.
Well, I think he was an angry artist. So
I'll try and find the JFK documentary and send it to you. They'll explain a bit in there about him.
Because
if you look at Hitler's family history, he was an abused child.
Oh yeah, you're right.
He grew up in an environment of abuse. He had no love, so there was all this resentment and anger, right. And he never dealt with it. He went into occult teachings, but what he wanted was power. He wanted, this is the ego's version of healing. The ego says, well, if you get more worldly power, then you'll be better off.
And who the other one is that had an abusive upbringing was Malema. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah, you can't.
Yeah, Saddam Hussein, same. They're all. You don't become a monster just like that. It was a product of karma. Maybe he was born with. There was some issues he had to work through. And then he got further abuse in his life, and then instead of saying I need to heal this and let this go and forgive, his solution was, no, I'm going to become the most powerful man in the world.
Yeah.
And that's going to make me feel better. And then
hit the nail on the head. Yeah.
But it's delusional, because actually he didn't feel better. He just projected all of his anger and his rage out onto the world.
Yeah.
And caused massive destruction in the process, and never healed himself. In the end, took his own life, apparently.
I don't think so, but anyway. Yeah.
Well, we don't know. But the point is, if you looked at the whole path, it was like actually a path of death and destruction.
Yeah.
It wasn't a path of uplifting anyone or of inspiring anyone or of healing. It was a path that was just about, death, destruction, murder, chaos, mayhem. It seemed to be initially. Oh no, he gave Germans their pride back, and started giving people jobs, but it was all because it was all coming from these lower levels. It was all about the security of the German people, and then this obsession with power, personal power, and he was the kind of cult figure that it.
Because they lost badly in the First World War, yeah. Oh, well.
Sorry,
yeah, thank you. You're quite right. Yeah, that's what it was.
How's it going? I'll be there shortly. Yeah, I'll come just now. I'm just finishing my discussion session. All right. Thanks. Fine. Okay, I'll put off the cameras. Okay, bye. So I was just being summoned to supper, a very late supper. So so that's quite an interesting model to, and if you look at what's happening in the world today, you can see all of these levels in different areas. playing themselves out. And really the movement of life is to go up the spiral. If you're going to heal, you've got to go up the spiral. You can't get stuck at a level or even go down. In fact, what's happening now with the whole COVID thing is they're actually trying to take us down a notch from the scientific materialist to like, actually now there's an absolute order. And this becomes the new power structure, the new controlling system, just like the church was in the Middle Ages.
They done it in China.
Hmm?
They've done it in China.
What, in China?
They've done it in China. China is lockdown, the whole thing. China is very, very organized and structured and ruled and contained.
Yeah,
and that's
so
if
if you're an energy power freak, because that's what you want absolute control, then you'll be like, right, we need some kind of absolute order, some kind of controlling mechanism to control all these unruly people, and make sure that society is.
But I thought that's what communism did until they got rid of it.
Yeah, but it's whether you call it communism or fascism, it's the same thing.
But people can't be pushed down for too long. It just gets people. It just has to change. It's the yin and yang.
Exactly.
But
No
communism there now, is there? Is there any communism left in China?
Well, sort of. I mean, it's still a a central controlled environment. Still an absolute order, which is the state. And of course, they don't want religion because religion challenges that. The idea of religion points to something higher that's beyond the power of the state.
Yeah.
Which is why all these fascist systems went, no, we've got to do away with spirituality, and because we want to be the gods, the leader on earth is the god, and you've got to worship us. We don't want you thinking about some otherworldly force, this life force energy, or however you term it, God, that's actually transcends all of us. Because then you don't give us your allegiance. Then we can't control you, because you're going to go, actually, my allegiance is to that God, spirit, life force energy, and I'm not going to listen to you because you're trying to lead me and everyone down the garden path.
Yeah.
But the reason why this whole thing, this COVID thing, which is just another version of the ego's control, is not going to work, is because there's this natural evolutionary impulse. People want to grow up the spiral, and more and more people are starting to do that. So how do you now suppress that and stop people going in the natural direction of love, of the Holy Spirit? It's an irrepressible force. There's no way they're going to go, right, now we're just going to lock you down into some kind of absolute order for another dark age of thousands of years. Because there's too many people. Once you go there and you break through to that level, then the natural direction is upwards. It's a completely natural progression to go into, yes, there's only one life. And teachings like the Course and other spiritual paths teach that. And as much as they try and suppress the truth, they cannot, because the truth is true and it's out there. And now we have technology like this that's enabling the communication of these ideas in a way that just wasn't possible hundreds of years ago. You can't stop it. Consciousness wants to evolve, because that's the program of the Holy Spirit, is ultimately every mind will go back to God. We'll go back to the awareness of the one life that it really is.
Can you email us that cone?
Yeah, I just found it online, but I'll send you the link.
Thanks. Okay, all right.
No, I'll put it in the email as well tomorrow. Actually, can I do a chat here? More chat. It's just interesting so it's a framework for understanding. Okay, so if you're in the domain of the ego, this idea of separated consciousness and levels, then these are the levels of consciousness which you can be aware of. And it's quite helpful, because you then look at the world and you look at people and the way they operate and so on, and you can actually not judge. Go, I just understand where they're at, right? So, you know, Julius Malema, you're at red, you want, you know, supreme power, you want to be a little power god. And then, you know, there's these scientists who feel tremendously threatened by these upper levels because it challenges their worldview of I'm a separate individual. If you start going here, you're going like, I'm not a separate individual. If there's only one life, how can I think I'm separate from that life? It's an insane idea. And then, you know, governments want absolute order and control. So, you know, they implement all these rules and regulations because we've got to control everything and organize everything. But spirit will evolve. You know, it is right now having these conversations. Millions and millions of people around the world are waking up, moving up the spiral. And so you can't stop that. It's an irrepressible force. It's the power of God. Basically, the ego is saying, no, I'm stronger, I'm more powerful, I'm going to lock everything down and control everything and keep it all here. And the Holy Spirit's like, no, you can't do that. Because the power of God is unlimited and it will arise in people. And now's the time. Now's the time for it to start really arising, because this information is freely available. You can't just release all of this and then put it all back in the box and go, now we're going to go back into the dark ages. It's not going to happen.
But hasn't this COVID virus, what was I going to say? Hasn't it helped in people awakening?
Yeah, because what happens is in any revolution, you see the old order fights back and it goes, right, we're going to try and lock everything down and we're going to stop this. And then, of course, because there's so obviously oppression, the new emerging consciousness goes, this is obviously wrong. And so it just confirms and it strengthens their conviction that they're on the right path. So, you know, revolutions have happened throughout history. We're just in another one. We're in a revolution now. It's a revolution from this scientific materialist paradigm upwards into something that transcends that. Into the idea that actually we are custodians of life itself. We need to nurture and support all life. And we need to create systems and social systems and structures that support that support life rather than destroy life. And then the old order is like, no. We're going to take you from here. This is the barrier. You're not going to go beyond this. The scientific materialist paradigm is actually going to become the new controlling system. And we're going to create an absolute new world order where everyone is now controlled by the science and by the technology we implement. And you're not going to think any other thoughts. This becomes the new religion. You can't question, we're seeing it. You can't question COVID. You question, you know, actually, is this really genuine? Then what happens? They go, no, you can't do that. But that so, you know, they don't want people to question the kind of accepted dogma. That's just like any religious, any dogmatic system. You don't question it, because if you question it, then the whole thing comes into question and their power is threatened. So it's nothing new. Like, this is nothing new. This has happened throughout history. We're just living through it. We're living through another revolution, which is both terrifying for some, but it's exciting and inspiring as well. It's like, well, you're part of this transformation of consciousness that's ongoing, and if we do that as a species, we transform the world, we transform ourselves, and we're going in the direction that we're meant to. Like the whole, you know, the Course's teaching is that the whole universe is really designed to awaken us. That's what we're here for, to wake up and go back to God, to this perfect oneness. And our job here, while we're doing it, is to do that. And that seems to have levels, and that seems to have these stages of awakening. Because we're in the domain of separation. The ego's created all these levels, but actually it's all moving in the right direction. And you actually need something like a COVID, and you need, you know, the powers that be to start exerting ridiculous control for people to question it and start going, hang on, like, this isn't right. Like, we don't want a society like this, when we could have a society that's based on love and mutual respect and compassion and, you know, structures that support life, that don't destroy life. So yeah, it's I hope that's helpful. It's an interesting model, and also a model that stops you judging. So if you go, okay, you know, I see Julius Malema, you know, spouting his mouth off and going, we're going to nationalize everything. Well, understand where he's at. That's where he's at. He's the power god. He wants to be the power god, and for the power god, that makes complete sense. If you're in that level of consciousness, that's all he knows. And the scientists that are telling us that, you know, no, COVID is this, and like, because that's their paradigm. It's a scientific materialist paradigm. And if you threaten that and you say, well, actually, the mind is more powerful and the mind creates disease, well, it threatens the whole belief system, doesn't it? And as much as they want to say they're objective, they're not. They believe in a dogma just like everyone else.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, we've gone, it's now 9:10. Shall we wrap it up? Or is there anything else you want to chat about?
That's fine by me, thanks.
Okay, Debbie?
All good, thank you.
Okay, so let's just do a little closing meditation. So closing your eyes, making yourself comfortable. Connect with your breath. Take a nice deep breath in through the nose. Breathing into the stomach, to your heart center, to the upper chest. Let's feel this presence again, stillness. Just arising, fearless, loving presence. Feel gratitude in your heart. This presence is always there. It doesn't matter what happens in the world. The world is always going to be full of drama and apparent difficulties, problems, pain, suffering, sickness, death. It's been going on forever. But this fearless, loving presence is always there. It's always with you. It's guiding you home in every moment, in every breath. So feel the gratitude in your heart, loving presence in your mind. Exhale, sigh it all out. Just drop your attention into your heart center. Spend a few moments there in stillness. Feel the love and the gratitude. Just because we are. I am that I am. We have life. We have awareness. And that life is extending from us to all the world to bless and heal. Everyone, all people, all living creatures. We're just in this journey back to God. It's all good. It's all perfect. Exactly as it is. Smile. Just anchor the state in. So feel the love, feel the gratitude. It's very positive, powerful energy to connect to. I'm going to set the intention to stay there for the rest of the evening and on into your weekend, on into the week ahead. So it is said, so it is done. And open your eyes gently and continue on with your evening. Or go to bed if you're ready for bed. So thank you for the session. I enjoyed that. I hope you did too. And I'll see you tomorrow, hopefully.
Thank you. Bye.
Hmm.
Hagar. Thank you. Thanks,
Yeah,
Jono.
1:30 and 6 p.m. tomorrow.
Thanks, guys. Thanks a lot.
Are you gonna join tomorrow afternoon, Debbie?
I should do. Yeah, I should do. I'll let you know, hopefully, if I don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for the discussion, everybody. Thank you.
Okay, enjoyed that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All
It
good.
was very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll send you the recording tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Bye. Keep well, Hazel.
Bye-bye.
Bye.